Former Cardinals general manager Walt Jocketty passing away over the weekend after what was described as a prolonged health battle. He was the general manager for the St. Louis Cardinals, also general manager of the Cincinnati Reds, had a successful tenure there as well. Derrick Goold of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch covered Jocketty during his tenure with the Cards. He put this out, covering someone for several years, far different than conversing with them for many years after. I learned a lot from Walt Jocketty, even more about him after he left St. Louis. I'm so thankful for those talks. Last conversation was on hockey. Derrick Goold of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch joins us now. He's covered the Cardinals since 2001. He's out at the ballpark now. Derrick, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Brian. Thank you very much.
You know, Derrick, we wanted to pay proper respect to Walt. He was a real gentleman. Sad news that came out this weekend. Tell us about your relationship.
Yeah, well, as I kind of mentioned in that statement that you just read, you know, it's a little different, as you know, when you're covering somebody on a beat. There's natural tension there, right? Like either you want to get the news or you want to get the truth. That doesn't always, that doesn't always please the folks who are involved, especially when you're critical of them. But thankfully, for the years after, Walt was here in Cincinnati, where I am today, and I got a chance to talk with him, talk with his son, who I knew when he was very young, and then also got a chance to talk with his son when he was a scout here for the Reds. So you get to know somebody a little bit differently. And, just earlier this year, I was texting with him about hockey. He grew up in Minnesota in a great sports family. His dad was a coach, a teacher. Walt was, took a lot of those kind of characteristics into being a GM, a coach, a teacher, a guy who was very ambitious. That's one of the things that I think was really something, a hallmark of him as a general manager, very ambitious. How do I get the best players? And kind of looking back at his tenure, you'll appreciate this. I know you call them aircraft carriers, right? So he's hired as general manager of the Cardinals, and they're trying to turn around, right? New owners, new vibe, ballpark, get 3 million people, restore the greatness of the Cardinals. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go try to get the best free agent available. I'm going to go try to get Larry Walker. And it didn't work out for them. They didn't sign Larry Walker, but he sure as heck got him in 2004. He was a guy who wanted to add big names, and he kind of restored a lot of what the Cardinals became, which was, bring fans to the ballpark, watch stars perform.
Yeah, he built powerhouses. When you look back at it, you look at, Edmonds, Roland, eventually got Walker, drafting Albert Pujols, all that. What was his general MO, as a modern GM?
Yeah, it's great. He liked to package prospects to get players, use the financial might that the Cardinals had because of their ticket sales, and use the marketplace that they had because of the passion of the fan base to bring a guy in and sell him on staying. I mean, you think back to Mark McGwire, right? Like Walt's ability to bring Mark McGwire and interest in bringing Mark McGwire from Oakland to the Cardinals. I mean, what did that do for baseball history? I've been trying to think through that one, Brian. Like, what if 1998 is Mark McGwire not in the NL Central and going up head-to-head with Sosa for so many, for at a distance as opposed to at so many games? What did that do to, kind of revitalize and add to that summer that Mark McGwire was in St. Louis, and that Mark McGwire could fall in love with what it means to play baseball in St. Louis and succeed there? And while that was like an individual putting on a showcase, right, what they did then later was build a team around that notion. Like, who can you bring in, use the farm system to trade for players, bring them in, sell them on the idea of staying, and then sign them long term. You listed a lot of them that they did that with, right? Roland, Edmonds. Walker had a contract when he came in. He stayed around a year. Darryl Kyle was another player that they traded for. Edgar Renteria, a great shortstop who was part of the team that won the 2004 NL pennant. You think about all those trades that he made that utilized the farm system to then add the all-star player to the major league team. It was a model that worked great at the time. Of course, we've seen that model change quite a bit to more success, of obviously more financial reality for teams when it comes to building from within.
Walt also left the Cards at the dawn of Moneyball, one of the, sabermetric years, and Jeff Luhnow's arrival there. I know he was a modern thinker. I don't look at him as an old school GM, but what was your read on that and how it ended in St. Louis?
Yeah, I think that there was as much, so they worked together for several years. Bill DeWitt Jr., the chairman of the team, wanted to modernize the team, wanted to pivot into a more self-sustaining model, as they talked about it, very analytically driven. You think about those years, that 10-year stretch there, where they were really successful in the draft. John Mozeliak was a big part of that, whether he was the assistant general manager or the general manager. And then, of course, Jeff Luhnow and his group, Sig Madoll, Michael Gersh, all that folks, they kind of revolutionized how the Cardinals assessed amateur talent so that they could succeed in late rounds of the draft. You look at Matt Carpenter, Trevor Rosenthal.
Right.
These were the real success stories, Matt Adams of that group. Walt saw that he later said that he could have embraced that quicker. But there was also some personality friction there. Some like, okay, what exactly are you trying to do? Are you coming to help the team? How does this fit in? Walt was very, very devoted to and loyal to a lot of the scouts that helped make him. And I think that is why he's so beloved in a lot of ways. You talked about it. You said it very well. A gentleman, right? He's really loved in baseball circles, partially because of that loyalty to guys that like, look, we can do this well and we can learn new tricks. And then the Cardinals just wanted to pivot more aggressively into the farm system and into the self-sustaining model.
Well, either way, I mean, incredibly successful.
Yes.
Through not just the Cards, but then the Reds, 3 90-win seasons in the Votto, Brandon Phillips years, and outstanding. Derrick, we got to wrap this up, but thanks for coming out to the ballpark and paying him tribute. And I think it's just the right thing to do. Just a very big figure in recent baseball history.
Absolutely.
And he'll be missed. Derrick, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for giving me the chance, Brian. It's an honor to talk about Walt, who means so much to so many people I know well.
All right. Thank you, Derrick. Appreciate that. Derrick Goold, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, again on the passing of Walt Jocketty. We'll take a short break. When we come back, Pat Murphy has had enough in Milwaukee, getting unbaseball-y at your own peril. Next.